2005 was undoubtedly a huge year for the genre of emo and pop punk. An astonishing amount of classic records in the genre came out during that year, to a point where I often ask myself, what exactly was in the water in 2005? How was there so much talent, so many movers and shakers of the genre, taking the oftentimes limited palettes of emo and pop punk to new heights? And how did almost all of these bands all put out seriously stellar classic albums in the year 2005? Just to name a few: Fall Out Boy's From Under the Cork Tree, The Academy Is Almost Here, Motion City Soundtrack's Commit This to Memory, Panic at the Disco's A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, Gym Class Heroes is The Paper Cut Chronicles, Plain White Tees All That We Needed, Acceptance's Phantoms. The list just keeps going on and on and on. Now, while I'd love to just sit here and gawk at how many game-changing emo records came out in 2005, there's one album by one band that I want to focus on today. A band who were undoubtedly one of the biggest and most important bands of this musical era, but they didn't properly hit it big in the mainstream until their second record, 2007's Riot. When Paramore released their debut album, All We Know Is Falling, in 2005 through Fueled by Ramen Records, they were still a very, very small band in the grand scheme of things. They didn't share, the same fate as Panic at the Disco, or even Cute Is What We Aim For, or Boys Like Girls, where their first record unexpectedly blew up overnight. The All We Know Is Falling era of the band was a brief moment in time where Paramore were the opening act for bands like Cute Is What We Aim For, and even Punchline. They were still cutting their teeth and trying to get noticed and hopefully make their thing happen within the burgeoning Fueled by Ramen emo pop movement of which they were a part of.
Music fans will be feeling the pressure, all right, for the newest darlings of pop punk, Paramore. Straight out of Nashville, these rambunctious teens combine headbanging riffs and earnest lyrics with a musical maturity that already has their pop-punk predecessors talking.
Hello, my name is the Cozy Representative, and today we are going to explore the All We Know Is Falling era of legendary emo pop rock titans Paramore. Let's go. But before we get into it, I do want to say real quick, if you are new here to this channel and you like what you see, please consider subscribing down below. It really helps me out a ton. And if you are subscribed already, please hit the notification bell so that you are informed every time I upload a new video. Also, one more thing, a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. YouTube often makes it very difficult for creators to make an income on videos alone, so any help over on Patreon seriously goes a long way. I post, kind of cool, just bonus content up there every month, and there's also a way to get me to do a video review of your band. So anyone who is already a member of my Patreon, thank you so much, and if you really like what I'm doing here, consider supporting me on there, because like I said, it does go a long way. And with that out of the way, back to Paramore. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about how Paramore first got together, because that story has been covered a million times over, but here's the basic rundown. So the band officially came together as Paramore in the year 2004. They were all super young, wholesome Christian teenagers from the small town of Franklin, Tennessee. They were all childhood friends who knew each other through school and living in the same little neighborhoods. It's a real simple, wholesome story of young childhood friends coming together to form a rock band. The original lineup of Paramore included 16-year-old Josh Farrow on lead guitar, his 14-year-old brother Zach Farrow on drums, 19-year-old Jeremy Davis on the bass, 15-year-old Haley Williams on lead vocals, as well as Haley's next-door neighbor Jason Bynum on rhythm guitar, who was the oldest member at the age of 20. They decided on the name Paramore for their band. If you're wondering why they chose that name, I will quote what Haley Williams had to say about it in a 2005 interview. In the beginning, it started out as this old idea we were throwing around, and it was our bass player's mom's maiden name. After, I guess, an old band ended, we were like, oh, Paramore, that's pretty cool, and we just went with it. Laughter. And in Latin, it means more love, and we found that out and liked it and thought it was really cool, so we used it. The band began writing songs influenced by pop rock bands like Jimmy Eat World and Fall Out Boy. Apparently the first song they ever penned was the song called Conspiracy, which did appear on their 2005 full-length, which Haley had actually apparently begun working on writing when she was 13 years old. Pretty wild.
I don't know, I mean, I've always, like in school, I've always liked writing, like the writing assignments teachers give you, and I guess I realized I liked it when I started doing it in my spare time rather than just at school, and I don't know, it started out with just poetry, and that's actually how Conspiracy started when I heard the music to this. I mean, Zach was only 11 when we wrote that, and I think I was 13 or something, but I went home and not even knowing they had written music, and I just wrote a poem, and I brought it to practice one day and started singing it to the music, and that's how it really became something that I knew, you know, it would work. You know?
In fact, there are several old original Paramore demos from 2004 which never ended up getting officially released. There was a song called My Number One. There was a song called Adore. There's a very Avril Lavigne-esque sounding song called Hello, Hello.
Hello, hello, is anyone home? Hello, hello, just pick up the phone.
Now, overall, it's very astonishing to hear these old demos because not only are they just so well written and advanced for a band made up of literal teenagers, like literal children, not to mention they're very well performed, but they also pretty much already sounded like the patented, tried and true Paramore sound we've always known and loved right off the bat. Besides the, like I said, Avril Lavigne or maybe Flyleaf-esque song Hello, Hello, Paramore already had the vision and general direction for the band down pat in these first songs, which sometimes takes bands literally a few albums before they figure that out. So that's impressive. Despite their young age, they were very talented, they were good together, and they were driven to become an awesome rock band. So they started playing local shows around Nashville in 2004, and it was then that right off the bat, label attention started coming their way. And in April of 2005, after playing a private live showcase for John Janik, owner of independent record label Fueled by Ramen, he was very impressed with the young band, and he officially signed them to Fueled by Ramen, making them label mates with similar up-and-coming pop rock acts like Fall Out Boy, The Academy Is, and Punchline.
Soon enough, the band was signed, and suddenly the pressure was on.
So, not long after their signing to Fueled by Ramen Records in the spring of 2005, the band traveled to Orlando, Florida to record their debut full-length record. Half of this record was recorded by producer Mike Green, who had also worked with artists like The Matches, Over It, and later Every Avenue. The other half of the record was recorded by producer James Paul Wisner. Now, I'm a huge James Paul Wisner fan. He also did Almost Here by The Academy Is. He did Under Oath's They're Only Chasing Safety, as well as Dashboard Confessional's early albums. Now, a very well-known and somewhat pivotal incident happened right before the recording sessions for All We Know Is Falling took place. Apparently, right before they started recording, after they had arrived in Orlando as a group, founding member and bass player, the big tall Jeremy Davis, took the band aside and said, "I can't do it. I bought a plane ticket home. I'm leaving the band."
We didn't expect to move to Orlando and write a whole record, you know, and put it out and be on Warped Tour all within 3 or 4 months. And it was really hard. It was hard on all of us. Jeremy, got us together in a huddle, and he was like, "I really need to talk to you guys outside." And he was like, "I bought a plane ticket home, and I'm leaving in 2 hours." We were like, okay.
The pressure, no pun intended, of being in a band who were hitting the gas pedal as quickly as the young Paramore were, I guess, caused Jeremy to get cold feet and back out at the last minute. The departure of their good friend Jeremy ended up being somewhat of a focal point of the theme of the album, if you will. Haley ended up saying this about this incident in this interview from August of 2005. Tony asks, "What's the significance behind the title of your album?" Haley, "Our old bass player Jeremy Jeremy left us right before we went through the whole recording process for the album. About 2 days after he left, we wrote the song All We Know. We decided we were going to base the album off of that, which is also what the cover means. The couch with no one there and the shadow walking away. It's all about Jeremy leaving us and us feeling like there's an empty space. Josh says, "But we're fine with him now. Everything's cool. It was a good subject to write the record around." Why did he end up leaving? He had some personal issues to deal with. He's in another band now. So, Jeremy was out, 86th. The band got a guy named Lucio Rubino, who apparently sang for a Christian rock band from the 2000s called Storyside B, to play bass on the album. And once the album was done, they solidified the lineup with a new bass player, a curly-haired fellow named John Hembry. Now, I never really thought that John Hembry was the best fit for Paramore. Maybe I'm just being superficial and thinking with my eyes, but he didn't really look the part, in my opinion. I don't know, I just didn't really see him as the right fit, but it is what it is, I guess. Now, this is why on all the promo photos for All We Know Is Falling and all the pictures in the CD booklet portray Paramore as a four-piece band. This was during the time when they didn't have an official bass player between Jeremy's departure and John's entrance. Anyways, after a 3-week-long recording session for the album, which guitarist Josh Farrow later described as feeling rushed, Paramore's official full-length debut record was finally released on July 26th of 2005 through Fueled by Ramen Records. Now, as a whole, All We Know Is Falling is a very simple, fun, sugary pop rock album. You can tell how young and innocent they were. There's definitely like kind of a cute, endearing teenage vibe of the whole album. And while it is at its core sugary pop rock, compared to their sophomore album, 2007's Riot, it is laced with a lot more melancholy, dark teenage angst than they ended up embodying on their next album. There's even a vague, slight hint of 2005 sounding post-hardcore on this album, on like the song Conspiracy or Emergency, for example, which shows that the band had the versatility to be able to go on a tour with a heavier band like the Receiving End of Sirens, as well as a poppier band like the Academy is. In fact, this 2006 feature on the band in Kerrang! Magazine actually labels Paramore as hook-laden post-hardcore from Tennessee. Interesting. I don't think they've ever been called post-hardcore since this album. Now, musically, this album is very simple and straight to the point, very punchy and concise. I've always loved the guitar tone on this album, very crunchy and warm distortion, almost reminiscent, in my opinion, of the guitars on like the Blue Album by Weezer or Return of the Rentals by the Rentals, for example. You can tell the band were, inspired by those types of 90s alternative rock bands while putting this album together, as well as stuff like Third Eye Blind and Jimmy Eat World, and there's even some early emo/indie influence in there, reminiscent of like Sunny Day Real Estate. The album's poppiest moments appear on tracks like Pressure, Here We Go Again, and Whoa. Pressure being a single and a music video off this album. These songs that I just listed were very in line with other pop rock bands who were coming out in 2005, the band's peers like Cartel or their label mates The Academy Is or Fall Out Boy. The album's darker, heavier, kind of moodier rock-sounding tracks include the opening track, All We Know, which is a perfect 1-2 punch of an opener with one of my favorite choruses on the album. Great vocals from Haley on that one. Emergency, which was also a single, a standout track, which again, perfectly encapsulates moody, dark teenage angst to a T, as well as the closing track on this album, My Heart, another moody halftime rock banger with beautifully heartfelt vocals from Haley, as well as a nod to fellow Christian Warped Tour rockers Under Oath at the end of the song, with an actual halftime heavy section with screamed vocals from guitarist Josh Farrow on there. Josh was like, Here's Under Oath Once. Guys, I think I need to scream on this one. And I bring that up because the band actually has said that they were listening to and inspired by Under Oath's 2004 record, They're Only Chasing Safety at the time, which was one of the reasons why they were so excited to record with James Paul Wisner for this record, because he had also produced that Under Oath record. Now, the album's more heartfelt, kind of indie emo leaning tracks like Brighter, Never Let This Go, or Franklin show off very emotionally satisfying, sparkly lead guitar from Josh Farrow, as well as equally emotional and at times cathartic sounding vocals from the young Hayley Williams. Overall, I love the album All We Know Is Falling. I love how young and innocent they sound on it, how pure it sounds, and also how it's such a simple and concise album while still maintaining to just bang super hard. It's always a fun listen all the way through. It fills me with a lot of meaningful emotions when I hear it, which I like. I know that this album, like the sound of it in general, is a bit dated, and a lot of people tend to prefer Paramore's later work to this one for understandable reasons. The band always, improved over the years, but for me personally, this is one of my favorite albums from Paramore, and its overall charm has a lot to do with that.
I've seen you cry way too many times when you deserve to be loved.
So it really was humble beginnings for Paramore on this record. Paramore were definitely not an overnight success, and it failed to chart at all when it was first released in the summer of 2005. However, over a year and a half later, in September of 2006, it did hit number 30 on the Billboard Heatseekers chart, which is a Billboard chart dedicated to new or developing acts. I'm presuming it may have charted at this time because it was directly following a successful run they did on that year's Warped Tour in the summer of 2006, maybe? I don't know. The All We Know Is Falling album didn't start moving massive amounts of units and receiving accolades until after the massive success of their second album, Riot, in 2007, and All We Know Is Falling did end up selling over 100,000 copies in the UK by 2009, and it finally was certified gold in the United States in 2014, with sales hitting 500,000 copies, so it was kind of a slow burn, this one. But before the success of Riot during this album's overall lifespan, it never got super big initially, but it definitely helped the band slowly grow a small grassroots following amidst the alternative scene at the time via the internet, touring, and word of mouth. And this album actually did get a really good response from kids who were already fans of Paramore's pop rock fueled by ramen label mates like Fall Out Boy and the Academy Is. These humble, grassroots, early fueled by ramen beginnings definitely set Paramore up for the real, palpable mainstream success which they would later reach. So, before I get into the specifics of the touring cycle which the band embarked on during the All We Know Is Falling era, I do want to shine light on a couple little fun facts which I find very cool and interesting about their live shows during this time. For one thing, Paramore definitely pioneered the live stage move which I like to call the body rock. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Also, because of the young age of the band, Hayley being 16 at the time and drummer Josh literally 15, it's been said that they actually toured with parental supervision. I believe Hayley's dad, or possibly both of her parents, drove their vehicle on tour during this time, which is super funny and also was definitely, no doubt, very annoying for the band members themselves, I can only assume. This in itself really spoke to how pure and innocent of a band they were at this time. Also, it's interesting to note that the band had already written the song Hallelujah, actually, during the All We Know Is Falling era. This song didn't get released until it appeared on the 2007 Riot album, but it was written during this time. In fact, here's a video of them performing Hallelujah acoustically in 2005.
Somehow everything's gonna fall right into place if we only had a way to make it all fall faster every day.
The cool coolest thing, in my opinion, about Paramore's live show during this time is when they would perform the song Here We Go Again. In the album version of this song, there's a really cool atmospheric sounding halftime part towards the very end with an epic, soaring high lead guitar part and almost haunting vocals from Haley. However, when they would play the song live, Josh would scream and Haley would sing like a part of a song by a different band over it, and it always sounded super epic. She would always pick really amazing songs, and it was a really cool nod to their influences at the time and a really cool, unexpected, spontaneous thing to witness live. She would sing freaking Panic at the Disco over it. She would sing When Paula Sparks by Copeland over it. She would sing One-Armed Scissor by freaking At the Drive-In over it. Sometimes she would even sing Backstreet Boys over it. It was awesome. So, right after this album was released, the band hit the road hard on that summer's 2005 Vans Warped Tour. They played on the Shira Girl stage, which was a tiny pink fold-out stage. It looked very flimsy, very small. The band was sometimes seen performing alongside William Beckett of the Academy Is, joining them to provide guest vocals on their song Whoa. I think it's cool to see him up there because it was like, the only point in time where it was like, wow, William Beckett was like definitely more famous than Hayley Williams was, and that was the only time in history in which that was the case. So the Shira Girl stage was a stage on Warped at the time created to highlight women performers. At first, before I knew anything about the Shira Girl stage, I've always thought that the idea for this stage was weird and kind of vaguely sexist in itself, because it's like, well, why can't women performers just be on the regular stages with everyone else? Why do they have to be almost tokenized on this separate platform? But in doing research for this video, I actually found out some pretty cool facts about the Shira Girl stage, which made me rethink my original perception of it and have a lot more respect for it. So the stage was created by Shira Yevon, lead singer of a pop-punk group called Shira Girl, who apparently was struck by the lack of women performing on Warped when she worked on the tour in 2003. She then approached Warped owner Kevin Lyman and expressed that she felt that the festival should have a women-centric stage, and while Lyman was supportive of the idea, he told her that she would have to wait until the year following, because I guess 2005 was going to be Warped Tour's 10-year reunion or whatever, so he was like busy with other stuff, but he was like, next year. And she basically said, fuck it, fuck that, and went DIY with it and organized the stage herself, essentially crashing Warped Tour by rolling up in a pink RV. She created her own stage. That's why the stage was so small and flimsy. And I think that that's totally fucking badass, because Warped Tour and the scene around it always has had a problem with almost unspoken misogyny and racism, being that 95% of the bands consist of entirely straight white men who all look pretty much the same. So right on, Shira. Thank you for getting some women on the Warped Tour when obviously wasn't a huge priority for Kevin Lyman at the time. Anyways, so after Warped Tour 2005, in September of that year, Paramore did some dates opening for My American Heart, Just Surrender, and Cute Is What We Aim For. Very cool. Shows how small of a band they were at the time, opening for acts like freaking My American Heart, you know what I'm saying? In October and November of 2005, the band went out on a very cool tour opening for Simple Plan alongside fellow openers The Plain White Tees and Stray Light Run, two bands who I absolutely infinitely adore. That's a very cool tour package. In February of 2006, the band started out that year on a small tour, once again opening for My American Heart as well as Halifax and So They Say. Here's what their MySpace account looked like when they were embarking on this aforementioned tour. The band then embarked on the 2006 Warped Tour once again in the summer, this time playing on an actual stage as an actual part of the real tour. Very awesome. And then in that fall of 2006, after Warped, the band started picking up more steam and went out on their first headlining tour, which was the Fueled by Ramen tour, alongside Cute Is What We Aim For, Hit the Lights, and This Providence, another awesome bill. Now, during the touring cycle for All We Know Is Falling, a couple more lineup changes went down. Towards the end of 2005, original rhythm guitarist Jason Bynum had left the group. According to him, he was having some family stuff going on at home that he felt like he needed to be present for instead of on the road all the time. He was then replaced by the band's friend Hunter Lamb, who took over on rhythm guitar throughout 2006. And then Hunter Lamb was later replaced once again by Taylor York in 2007, another friend of the band's. So Taylor York is actually still to this day a member of Paramore, and their friendship and relationship with Taylor actually goes all the way back to the All We Know Is Falling era. In fact, Taylor even has writing credits on their song Conspiracy, which appears on this album. Very cool. Also, most notably, Jeremy Davis, their original bassist who left after getting cold feet right before recording the record, ended up returning to the band after 5 months away, replacing that weird Josh Hembry guy. No offense, Josh Hembry, but I think Jeremy was a better fit as a bass player for Paramore at the time. And with that, all things were right in the universe. Until he left the band in like 2015 and ended up like suing Haley and Taylor for like songwriting money or I don't know, whatever. He's not in the band anymore. But at the time, good fit. So the last piece of fun information I have for you before I will let you go, the last fun fact from the All We Know Is Falling era is the release of the Summer Tick EP in the summer of 2006. Now, this EP was limited edition. It was self-released by the band and was only sold during their stint on the 2006 Warped Tour as well as on the fueledbyramen.com web store until it sold out. Given that this EP was self-released and super limited edition and was never pressed again after its original pressing, as you could imagine, a physical copy of the Summer Tick EP is like somewhat of a holy grail item for Paramore collectors. It's extremely rare. It could go for like $500 on eBay. This EP included the quote-unquote crab mix, I'm not sure what that means, of their song Emergency, which was basically just the regular song, but it also included screamed vocals thrown in there for some reason. I used to think this crab mix was awesome when I was younger. I checked it out again recently, and yeah, I don't think those added screamed vocals really aged very well, but it was cool at the time. It's a fun little version. There were also 2 unreleased Paramore songs from the All We Know Is Falling sessions on the Summer Tick EP. One was called Oh Star, and the other song was called This Circle. There's also a very cool cover of the song Stuck on You by the 90s arty alternative rock band called Failure on there, which is also very awesome. And yeah, guys, that is pretty much the All We Know Is Falling era of Paramore in a nutshell. So to end this video off on a fun, heartwarming, and nostalgic note, I will send you guys off with some discourse from an archived absolutepunk.net forum thread discussing Paramore from the spring of 2006 that I found. Thank you all for watching so much. I appreciate it, and I will see you again next time right here on The Cozy Representative. Peace out. I actually ended up seeing them last night, and they put on a really good live show. I thought they sounded horrible at Bamboozle. Maybe they need to be experienced indoors? Paramore has sounded amazing every time I've heard them. I believe they have their own sound guy, but don't hold me to that. Ha ha ha, post-hardcore. Whatever you want to categorize them as, those kids are amazing. So passionate live, I'm entirely unsurprised they're getting the attention. Haha, my phone just rang. Now I think we're taking this too far, don't you know? They sounded fine at Bamboozle. I could have done with a longer set though. Were you surrounded by a gaggle of kids screaming the lyrics or something? I saw them at South by Southwest at Emos and they were awesome. They're definitely a band people into pop punk should see.